Hey guys, welcome to this video where I'll be teaching you about the visitor pattern in Java. So before we get much further into the video, if this is your first time in this channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss in the future when I post new videos. After saying so, let's get started. So the very first thing that we really need to understand here is what is a visitor pattern. So according to refactoring.guru website, visitor is a behavioral design pattern that lets you separate algorithms from the objects on which they operate. And with the help of the visitor pattern, we can move the operational logic from the objects to another class. Let's see an example on this. I have an example here from sourcemaking.com. I've also shared the link in the description in case you want to learn more about the visitor design pattern. We can see here that when a person calls a taxi, the company dispatches a cab to the customer, and when the customer has entered the taxi, he is no longer in control of the transportation, rather the taxi driver is. So that's the same thing with the Java visitor design pattern, where we no longer let our classes handle the logic, rather we let the visitor interface handle that logic. So we'll learn more about that using some examples. After saying so, let's see the advantages and disadvantages of the visitor design pattern. Starting with the pros of the visitor design pattern. Firstly, when our logic on the code changes, we don't have to necessarily go to our individual classes and change the code. Rather, we only have to change the visitor interface implementation. Also, when we have to add new logic or new items, it seems to be pretty easy using the visitor design pattern. Moving on to the cons of the visitor design pattern. When you use the visitor design pattern, it makes your code become even more complex. So next, let's see a problem that could be solved using the visitor design pattern. So let's assume that we run a gym business and we have different kind of memberships to our members, including bronze, silver, and gold. And the problem is we want to send different emails to different members. So the very easiest thing that we could do is maybe we could have an interface called member, and inside we have a method called send email. And then we could have our member classes implementing the interface. For example, the bronze member will implement the member interface and implement the send mail method. Also, we'll do the same for the silver and for the gold member. This seems like an easy thing to do, but what happens in the future when we have to maybe add another functionality, maybe say send SMS? So for that case, we'll have to change the code on each of the individual classes and assume that we have thousands of classes. That will be a pretty hard work to do. So let's see an example how we could do this using the Java visitor design pattern. So here I have my editor open. I'm using IntelliJ for this tutorial, though you can use any kind of editor of your choice. So firstly, I'm going to create the interface of members, and I'll put it in a package. Sorry, let me create a package here and call it members, so we can just keep our coding in a cleaner way. So I'll create an interface and call it member. Inside our interface, I will have a method called send email, like that. So the next thing is I'll need to have different kind of members. So here I'll go ahead and create different classes. The first one will be the bronze member, and we'll say implement member interface. I'll import the necessary methods needed, just like that. Then I'll have another member here. Let me copy this code. I'll create another member, silver member, and I'll paste the code there. And I'll have the last member, which is the gold member. I'll paste this code here. So this is the package that includes our members. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a package that will have our visitors. So I'll come here and create a new package, and I'll call it visitors. So inside the visitors package, I'm going to create one interface, and I'll call it visitor. And inside the visitor interface, I'll have a method called visit. So the visit method will accept different members every time they get called. So we'll have our bronze member, and we'll have another visit method that accepts the silver member, and lastly we'll have the visit that accepts our gold member, just like that. Then we'll have now other classes that implements the visitor. So for this case, we are dealing with the email, so I'll create a class and say this is an email visitor, and this email visitor should implement the visitor interface, just like that. And I'll import all the methods that are needed. So for the visitor design pattern to work, we also have to have an accept methods in our members, and I'm going to add it here on the member interface. I'll create an accept method. You can call the method any name, but it's a good practice to call it accept. And inside the accept method, we are going to accept a visitor. Let's call it visitor v. And so we have to come and change our code again. Here you can see we have a red line, means we have to implement some methods. So I'm going to implement this method here, accept visitor, and also the same for our silver member. I'll implement the method, and for a gold member the same. I'll go ahead and implement the method. So let's go back to our email visitor and implement the email according to different members. So for this tutorial, I won't go much into more details of implementing the email functionality. Rather, I'll just have our code print out something on console. So when the email visitor interacts with the bronze member, we want to send an email, and we want to print that email has been sent to the bronze member, just to confirm that it worked. So I'll do the same for the rest of the members. I'll copy the code here and paste here and paste here. So I'll change here to silver, and here I'll change it to gold. So now anytime our email visitor gets the method visit being called and either of these members get passed, it's going to print either of these three print statements. So here we come to our member object. I'll start with the bronze member and start to implement it. And implementing this is just as simple as saying v. So we just call the visitor that has been passed here on the parameter, which is v. So I'll say v.visit, then I'll pass this particular object, which is the bronze member object. Same thing, I'll go to our gold member and I'll say v.visit. I'll pass in this same object. And lastly, to our silver member, I'll say v.visit. I'll pass in this object. So for that case, let me just go ahead and remove this send email function because we don't need it anymore. And here, also here, and here. So now we have our code implemented, the design pattern. Let me go here and create a new class that will run our program and initialize the objects. So I'll call it runner for now, and I will say I'll create the main method here. Then I'm going to create a visitor. So we are going to create a visitor and say email visitor equals to new email visitor. So here we've created our visitor object, and the next thing we're going to create different members. The first member I'm going to create is the bronze member. So I can say, I can just call it from the interface because they all inherit the interface. I'll say member equals to bronze member, then equals to new bronze member. I'll create another member and call I'll create another member and say this is a silver member equals to new silver member, and lastly I'll have the gold member. Say gold member equals to new gold member. So here we have 3 members created, and we want all of them to have the email sent to them. So this is just going to be as simple as saying bronze member dot accept, then we pass in the email visitor, just like that. So this one is going to, the accept method is going to call the email visitor and let the email visitor handle the email logic. Same for the silver member, we're saying accept email visitor, and lastly our gold member dot accept email visitor. So if we go ahead and run this file, we expect to see the emails being sent to all the 3 members, the bronze, silver and gold member, and the output should be printed out in the console. So as you can see here, our program was run successfully, and you can see that email has been sent to the bronze member, to the silver member, and to the gold member. After saying so, this is the very basic example of visitor design pattern. If you enjoyed the video and you've learned something today, please go ahead and like and share it with your friends. Or if there is any feedback that you'd like to provide to me, please go ahead and write so in the comment section. This is the end of this video. See you again next time. Bye bye.